They say blood is thicker than water, but in the dark, it just runs cold. I built a fortress for my children, yet they only saw a tomb to rob.
Sign the damn power of attorney, Dad, or would you rather have the paramedics from Sunset Pines drag your shaking ass out of here in cuffs? Garrick, my own flesh and blood, spits those words as he slams a thick stack of legal documents onto my Concord tea table. He doesn't even care that he just knocked over the warm tea I had painstakingly poured, my hands trembling with every ounce of effort my Parkinson's would allow. Behind him, Sibylla and Jessamy stand with their arms crossed, looking at me like I'm some pathetic, senile relic, just waiting to strip away my home and every cent of my life's savings. These are the kids I sacrificed my youth and my career at the IRS to raise. Now, they've teamed up with a bottom-feeding lawyer named Barnaby Fitch to back me into a legal corner. They're weaponizing my tremors, turning my illness into a severe dementia trap to strip away my basic human rights. My chest aches, not just from the disease, but from the freezing cold of their betrayal. Since Dorothea passed, the silence in this house has been deafening. But this is a slow-motion execution. What the hell do you do when the kids you raised try to bury you alive in a nursing home just to cash a check? Smash that subscribe button and tell me. How would you deal with these backstabbing vultures if you were in my shoes? The turkey rested in the oven, filling my Concord home with sage and rosemary. Outside, a freezing wind rattled the windows. I set the table for 4, folding napkins exactly the way Dorothea used to. My right hand rattled against the mahogany. I gripped my twitching wrist. To my kids, my Parkinson's was an open invitation. My phone buzzed. Garrick. I slid the screen. Hey, son, I just took the bird out. You guys close to the state line? Look, Dad, I'm really sorry, okay? Garrick's voice had the rapid cadence of a Chicago trader. But things are insane at the firm. The market's taking a dump, and I've got clients breathing down my neck. I can't make the drive. It's Thanksgiving, Garrick, I said, keeping my voice flat. We talked about this. I told you we needed to discuss the family estate. I know. But my portfolio is hemorrhaging, Dad. I'm trying to save people's life savings. Surely you understand that. We can do the estate stuff over Zoom or something. You don't need us there just to sign some papers. Zoom? I asked. You want to divide your mother's legacy over video? Come on, don't make it a federal case, he sighed. It's just paperwork. Besides, with your shaking hands, you shouldn't be stressing over a massive dinner anyway. My head is fine, Garrick. Right. Look, my other line is ringing. Love you, Dad. Is there something else going on in Chicago? What do you mean? Garrick scoffed. Dad, you're getting paranoid again. This is exactly what Sibylla was talking about. What was she talking about? Your mood swings, okay? You've been living alone in that big house for too long, seeing ghosts. We're doing this for your own good. By bailing on Thanksgiving, it's one dinner, Dad. Why do you hold everything hostage? You've run this house like an IRS audit since we were kids. I have a $3 million fund to manage, and I don't have the bandwidth to play happy family while my margins are crashing. Your margins are crashing because you took risks you couldn't afford. You don't know a damn thing about my business. Just keep your phone on. Fitch is going to send you some paperwork tomorrow. Just sign it. Who is Fitch? An estate specialist. Just look over the documents when they arrive. The line went dead. The kitchen felt colder. Then Sibylla called. Dad, I am literally dying here, Sibylla gasped. The showroom has a plumbing disaster. Half the spring collection is ruined. Plumbing? On Thanksgiving? Yes. I mean, it happened last night, but the cleanup is a nightmare. I can't leave the interns. I'm stuck. So you won't be coming either. I literally can't, Dad. Honestly, with you being so isolated up in Concord, maybe you should just order in. You shouldn't be slaving over a hot stove with your tremor anyway. It's dangerous. I fold the napkins just fine, Sibylla. Sure, Dad. But Garrick said you almost burned the kitchen down last month because you left the burner on. I didn't leave it on. The pilot light was acting up. I fixed it. See? That's what I'm talking about. Fixing stoves with your hands shaking like a leaf? Dad, you're 65. You have to accept that you can't manage anymore. We're trying to help. That's why we're bringing in Fitch. Fitch? Why are you talking to a lawyer about my house? We're talking about your health. We want to make sure you have care. Just don't be stubborn. When the papers come, just sign them. It makes everything easier. Love you, she hung up. Next was Jessamy. Hey, Dad. Jessamy's voice was sluggish from her San Francisco apartment. My flight got cancelled. Total nightmare in Chicago. Heavy storms. There are no storms in Chicago, I said. Garrick just called from there. The weather is perfectly clear. There was a sharp pause. Well, crew scheduling then. United cancelled it. I'm stuck. Can we do this another time? It's not just dinner, Jessamy. It's about Dorothea's legacy. Dad. Don't start with the guilt trip, she snapped. Honestly, with your condition, maybe you shouldn't be hosting anyway. Garrick said, You sounded super confused on the phone. We're just looking out for you. I am not confused. But why are you so eager to have me sign documents from Barnaby Fitch? How do you know his name? Garrick and Sibylla mentioned him. What are you three planning? Nothing. You're being paranoid. This is exactly why we're doing this. You're suspecting your own kids. You have Parkinson's, Dad. You're not the chief auditor anymore. Let Garrick handle the finances. He knows what he's doing. Garrick is facing a margin call, Jessamy. Should he really manage my money? I don't know what you're talking about. That's just business. Look, I have to go. Bye. The line went dead. Systematic. Coordinated. I cleared the dining table, putting the silver forks back in the drawer. I wrapped the turkey in foil, my trembling hand making the aluminum wrap crinkle with a loud, pathetic clatter. In my study, a blinking blue light behind the hallway bookshelf caught my eye. I didn't own anything blinking blue. I hauled the heavy bookshelf back. Tucked in the outlet was a white Wi-Fi signal booster. I pulled it out. Warm. Garrick had plugged this in 3 weeks ago. Why? I booted my ThinkPad, logging into my SEC-encrypted IRS backup account. My breath hitched. An automated email from the Middlesex Probate Court read, Notice of filing, temporary emergency guardianship. Jessamy had fat-fingered the notification field, auto-filling our old family backup address that forwarded straight to my secure inbox. The attached petition, signed by all 3 of my children, alleged I suffered from severe cognitive decline and advanced dementia. On page 4 was an affidavit signed by a Dr. Alistair Finch, certifying my mental capacity was irreversibly compromised. I had never met a Dr. Alistair Finch. They were declaring me legally dead while my heart was still beating. A sharp knock rattled the front door. I opened it to find my neighbour, Clara Vance, shivering in the wind with a thick manila envelope. Oh, Cornelius, thank goodness you're home, Clara said, her breath fogging. Clara, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. The mailman put this in my box by mistake, certified. But Cornelius, there was a man in a suit in your backyard earlier today. A man in a suit? Yes. Taking photos of your porch and foundation. He said your children hired his appraisal company to value the estate, and he kept asking if you seemed confused lately or if you wandered off. It felt wrong. My children. Yes, I told him to get off your property. Is everything okay? I thought the kids were coming. They had urgent business, Clara. On Thanksgiving. That's awful. Why don't you come over for dinner with me and George? We have plenty of ham. Thank you, Clara, but I should stay. I have some auditing to do. Auditing on a holiday? The books never sleep. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, dear. Let me know if you need anything. She scurried back. I locked the door and ripped open the envelope. Inside was a draft of a full power of attorney and an estate liquidation agreement from Barnaby Fitch. Esque. Attached was a post-it note in Garrick's handwriting. Fitch, make sure the old man signs this Friday. If he hesitates, tell him we have the emergency order ready to bypass him. We need the Concord house sold before the December margin call. My hands shook violently, not from Parkinson's, from fury, because my children had calculated the cost of my life and found it worth less than a Chicago margin call. My parental hesitation evaporated. I plugged the Wi-Fi booster into my laptop and checked my router logs. Every Tuesday at 2:00 a.m., a Chicago IP address had logged in, copying my tax records, bank statements, and retirement portfolio. Garrick hadn't boosted my Wi-Fi. He had built a back door. The cold, analytical mind of the IRS's top forensic auditor slowly woke up. "You want my estate, kids?" I whispered, my tremor completely stopping. "Then let's look at the books." The cold Concord air crept through the floorboards, but the chill inside my chest had nothing to do with the Massachusetts winter. Because my children treated my life like a distressed asset, I had to treat their conspiracy like a hostile takeover. On Friday morning, Garrick called. "Hey, Dad," he said, his voice dripping with infomercial warmth. "How's the tremor today? Did you eat some breakfast?" It's a bit rough today, Garrick. Dropped my coffee mug this morning." "See? This is exactly what we're worried about. Dad, you're living in that big house all by yourself, throwing hot liquids around. It's a safety hazard. Sibylla, and I think you need someone there to manage things. A professional. I suppose. But the house, Dorothea loved this place, Garrick. I don't want to leave. Nobody is saying you have to leave right this second, Dad, but we need to get the paperwork in order. I've got this estate lawyer, Barnaby Fitch. He's going to draft some documents for us. A power of attorney, so I can handle the bills. A lawyer? Why do we need a lawyer, Garrick? I can pay my own bills." "Dad, calm down. Your memory isn't what it used to be. You forgot to pay the property tax last quarter. Remember? Did I? I must have misplaced the receipt. I'm sorry, Garrick. Exactly. Just rest up, Dad. Let us handle the heavy lifting. I have to go." The second he hung up, my posture straightened. Having spent 30 years hunting down corporate tax evaders for the IRS, I knew defense was a losing play. You build the case first. I drove to Boston to meet my attorney, Genevieve Abbott, and Cyrus Montgomery, my trusted asset tracer. "Cornelius," Genevieve said, sliding a cup of coffee toward me. "Tell me the router logs weren't just you forgetting your own password." "They weren't," I said, my voice firm and analytical. "Garrick's IP logged into my network from Chicago at 2:14 a.m. on 4 consecutive Tuesdays. He's downloading my tax returns and portfolio balances." And Jessamy fat-fingered a court notification. "They've filed for temporary emergency guardianship in Middlesex probate court." "On what grounds?" Genevieve asked. "Severe cognitive decline and dementia," I said flatly. "They've got an affidavit from a Dr. Alistair Finch." "Alistair Finch?" Cyrus chimed in. "That guy's a mercenary with an M.D. If the price is right, he'll sign a certificate saying a Supreme Court justice is unfit. He's been under state board scrutiny twice." "Because he's smart enough to hide the paper trail," Genevieve muttered. "Cornelius, if they pushed this emergency petition through, a judge could freeze your accounts and appoint Garrick as your temporary guardian within 72 hours. Once they have that, they can legally evict you and liquidate the Concord property to pay off Garrick's debts. What is our play? Because the court relies heavily on medical evidence, we need an undeniable counterweight," Genevieve said. "I've booked you an appointment at MGH. 3 hours from now, you're going to undergo a full independent neuropsychological evaluation. I've secured 3 department heads, neurology, psychiatry, and geriatrics, to conduct it. No one can challenge their findings." "And what about Finch?" I asked. Cyrus smiled. "Because Garrick is a trader, he leaves digital footprints. He's cash poor right now due to his margin calls, which means if he paid Finch, he had to scramble. I'll start digging into Finch's clinic accounts and Garrick's shadow LLCs. If there's a wire transfer, I'll find it." 3 hours later, I sat in a sterile room at Massachusetts General Hospital. The grueling evaluation pushed my Parkinson's tremor to its absolute limit, my right hand rattling against the metal chair. Mr. Albright, Dr. Sarah Sterling said gently, focus on my voice. Can you define audit trail? An audit trail is the chronological record that reconstructionists use to trace financial data back to its source, I said, my voice steady despite my shaking hand. It cannot be erased. It can only be hidden. Excellent, she said. Can you subtract 7 from 100 and keep subtracting 7 all the way down? 93, 86, 79, 72, 65, 58. 51, I recited. That's quite enough, Mr. Albright. Your cognitive agility is remarkable. 2 hours later, she handed me the sealed report. My cognitive score was a perfect 100%. Walking out of MGH, my phone buzzed with an encrypted message from Cyrus. I called immediately. Did you find the link, Cyrus? I asked. Got him red-handed, Cornelius, Cyrus said. Garrick transferred $50,000 from a Delaware shell company, Vance Capital Holdings, directly to Dr. Finch's personal offshore account in the Caymans last Monday. I've got the wire transfer routing numbers. It's straight-up bribery of a medical witness. Keep that document sealed and secured, I told him. We don't show our hand until they are under oath. You got it, boss. Be careful out there. On Thursday evening, Jessamy called. I could hear the San Francisco traffic in the background. Dad, are you there? She whimpered. I'm here, Jessamy, I said, injecting a hollow, tired rasp into my voice. Just trying to figure out how to open this soup can. My hands are acting up. Oh, Dad, that's so awful. It breaks my heart to hear you like this. Listen. Garrick told me about the papers. If you sign the power of attorney over to him, he can hire a full-time nurse for the house. You won't have to worry about cooking or cleaning anymore. A nurse? But I like my privacy, Jessamy. Your mother and I built this life. I know, Dad, but Mum is gone, and you're not safe. What if you fall? What if you forget to turn off the furnace? Please, just do this for us. For me, I can't sleep at night worrying about you. Are you really worrying about me, Jess? I asked, a genuine pang of sorrow hitting my chest. Of course I am. That's why we need Garrick to handle the money. Just sign the papers on Friday when Fitch brings them. Please, Dad. I'll think about it, sweetheart, I whispered. Don't think about it, Dad. Just do it, she said, her tone suddenly dropping the warmth entirely. Otherwise, we might have to take steps we don't want to take. Because she had threatened me, I knew the final trap had to be set. An hour later, Sibylla initiated a FaceTime call from her loft in Soho. Look at you, Dad, she sighed. You look exhausted. Have you been sleeping? The heater is making a funny noise, Sibylla, I said, slurring my words slightly, staring past the camera with a vacant, unfocused gaze. I think your mother is in the garden. She's trying to plant the winter roses, but it's too cold. Dad, Mum passed away a year ago, she said, her voice dripping with fake pity as her eyes flared with predatory excitement. Do you know where you are right now? I'm at the office, I mumbled. The IRS office in Boston. I have to finish the Vance audit. Wait, no, I'm in Concord. I can't find my keys, Sibylla. Oh, Dad, this is getting so much worse, she said. You really need help. The water, it's everywhere. Dorothea's papers, I cried out, panicking on cue. I let my right hand shake violently, deliberately knocking my glass of water off the desk so it shattered on the floor. I have to go, Sibylla. Dad, wait! Don't hang up. I disconnected the call, letting my phone crash to the floor. 10 minutes later, an email from Barnaby Fitch arrived, delivering the ultimatum. Mr. Albright, due to the rapidly escalating concerns regarding your safety and cognitive health, my clients have authorized me to fast-track our meeting. I will be at your Concord residence tomorrow, Friday, at 2:00 p.m., accompanied by a notary and a medical transport team. If you refuse to execute the power of attorney voluntarily, we will immediately serve you with an emergency guardianship order and have you placed in protective custody at Sunset Pines. This is not open for negotiation. I stared at the screen, a cold, calculated smile spreading across my face. The trap was sprung. Friday at 2, I whispered to the empty room. I'll see you then, counselor. The grandfather clock in my study ticked. Outside, freezing sleet pelted my Concord home. Because they had sent their ultimatum, I knew they would arrive exactly at 2. At 1:58 p.m., a black Escalade pulled up. I watched Fitch step out first. Then came Garrick, Sibylla and Jessamy, her eyes on her boots. Further down, a white van stenciled Sunset Pines Assisted Living idled. They didn't knock. Garrick used his spare key. "Dad," Garrick called out. "We're here. We brought Mr. Fitch to help us sort out those medical papers." I walked out of the study, letting my right hand tremble. "Garrick, Sibylla, Jessamy, you all made it after all. I thought you were too busy for Thanksgiving." "Oh, Dad, don't be like that," Sibylla sighed, walking past me into the living room. She sniffed the air, frowning. "It smells so musty in here. Honestly, how do you live like this? This place is a cave." "It's my home, Sibylla," I said softly, sitting in the wingback chair. "Your mother and I lived here for 30 years. And that's exactly the problem, Mr. Albright," Barnaby Fitch said, stepping forward. He laid a thick navy folder on the coffee table. "I'm Barnaby Fitch. I represent your children's collective interest in your well-being, and unfortunately, the status quo is no longer viable. My well-being?" I looked at the folder, then at Jessamy, who refused to meet my gaze. "What is this?" "Jess?" "Dad, please, just hear him out," Jessamy whispered, her voice cracking. "We can't keep living like this. Every time my phone rings, I think it's the Concord police telling me you burned the kitchen down." "I have never burned the kitchen down, Jessamy," I said. "That's not what Dr. Finch's clinical report says," Fitch interrupted, sliding a document out. "I have here a certified evaluation signed by Dr. Alistair Finch. After reviewing your recent medical history, your FaceTime episodes, and your physical tremors, Dr. Finch has diagnosed you with rapidly progressing senile dementia. Legally speaking, Mr. Albright, you are no longer competent to manage your affairs." I stared at it. I have never met this doctor. How could he evaluate me? "He reviewed the video calls Sibylla recorded, Dad," Garrick said, stepping closer. "You were talking about Mom planting roses in the winter. You thought you were at the old IRS office. You shattered a glass on camera. You're losing your grip, Dad. We have to face reality." It was a slip of the tongue, Garrick. I was tired. My hands prudishing, I held up my right hand, letting it shake violently. "The Parkinson's makes me clumsy. It doesn't mean my mind is gone." "With all due respect, Mr. Albright, the law doesn't make that distinction when your physical safety is compromised," Fitch said, his voice flat. "Under Massachusetts general laws, we have already prepared an emergency petition for temporary guardianship. We are presenting this to the Middlesex Probate Court on Monday morning." "Middlesex Probate Court Patrician," I mumbled, rubbing my temples. "You're taking me to court? We don't want to, Dad," Sibylla cried. "But look at you. You're shaking like a leaf. You're a danger to yourself. If we don't do this, the state will step in anyway. We are trying to protect you." "Protect me? Protect me?" I looked at her. "Or protect your lifestyle, Sibylla." "Excuse me." Sibylla's face flushed red. "How dare you? I took a red-eye from New York for this. I'm losing thousands of dollars every day my showroom is closed, and I'm doing it to make sure you don't rot in this old house." "Calm down, Sibylla," Garrick snapped. He turned back to me, his voice dropping. "Look, Dad, here's the deal. We don't want to drag our family drama into a public courtroom. It's embarrassing and expensive. So we're offering you an alternative." Fitch tapped the folder. "This is a voluntary power of attorney. It grants Garrick full, unconditional authority over your financial accounts, your medical decisions, and your real estate. If you sign this right now, we withdraw the court petition immediately." "And what happens to my house?" I asked. "What happens to Dorothea's home?" "We'll sell it," Garrick said flatly. "It's worth $2 million. We'll use the proceeds to put you in a beautiful suite at Sunset Pines. It's a wonderful assisted living facility. You'll have 24-hour nursing care. You won't have to lift a finger. And the rest of the money I asked, looking straight into Garrick's eyes. My retirement portfolio. The 8 million in New England Trust. It will be placed in a restricted care account, managed by me, Garrick said, his chest puffing out, to ensure your long-term medical bills are covered. We have to think about your future, Dad. Your future, I repeated. Garrick, you have a margin call due by the end of December, don't you? $3 million? Garrick froze. The smug smirk on his face flickered. Where the hell did you hear that? See? This is the paranoia Dr. Finch wrote about in his report. You're inventing corporate conspiracies to avoid dealing with your own decay. It's not paranoia, Garrick, I said. It's basic math. Enough of this, Cybele interrupted, stepping between us. Dad, you're being incredibly selfish. Jessamy is practically having panic attacks every night because of your health. Garrick is trying to save this family from financial ruin, and you're sitting here hoarding a house you can't even clean. Just sign the damn papers. I looked at Jessamy. Is that true, Jess? You're having panic attacks because of my health? Or is it because the bookies in San Francisco are threatening to break your legs over that $600,000 debt? Jessamy gasped, her face draining of color. She took a step back, her lower lip trembling. Dad, how do you Prodrine? Don't let him manipulate you, Jessamy, Fitch said, his voice cutting through the room like a scalpel. He slid a sleek Mont Blanc pen across the table. Mr. Albright, your children have been extremely generous, but my patience is limited. The medical transport team is waiting outside. If you do not sign this voluntary power of attorney within the next 5 minutes, I will instruct them to escort you to Sunset Pines under the authority of our emergency protective custody filing. The court will ratify it on Monday, and you will lose everything anyway. Sign the paper. I looked down at the pen. My right hand shook violently against the armrest. I can't write, I whispered, letting my voice shake. My hand, I can't hold the pen. I'll help you, Garrick said eagerly, reaching for my hand. Just grip it, Dad. I'll guide your wrist. It'll be over in a second. No, I said, my voice suddenly dropping its trembling rasp. I pulled my hand back, resting it flat on my lap. The tremor stopped instantly. I looked up, my eyes locking onto Barnaby Fitch with the cold, unyielding authority of a man who had spent 30 years breaking the most powerful tax evaders in the country. I don't think I will. Fitch frowned. Mr. Albright, I don't think you understand the gravity of your situation. You don't have a choice. I always have a choice, Counselor, I said, my voice steady and entirely calm. And because you brought this fight to my living room, I am going to give you my answer. I reached into my breast pocket with my left hand, pulling out a folded document. I laid it over their unsigned paperwork. It was a notarized declination of voluntary power of attorney and a notice of objection to representation, drafted by Genevieve. With my right hand completely still, I picked up the pen and signed my name, Cornelius Albright, in a perfect, elegant cursive. I slid it to Fitch. I will see you, your fake doctor, and my 3 loving children in the Middlesex probate court on Monday morning at 9 o'clock, I said, rising to my feet, standing tall and unbroken. Bring every piece of evidence you think you have. Fitch stared at my signature, his mouth opening. Beside him, Garrick's face turned ash white. Monday morning, Counselor, I repeated, gesturing toward the door. Now get the hell out of my house. The heavy oak door clicked shut behind Barnaby Fitch and my 3 children, leaving a deafening silence in my Concord home. For 30 seconds, I didn't move. I stood in the center of the Persian rug Dorothea had picked out for our 25th anniversary, staring at the empty space where my flesh and blood had just stood. Because they had chosen to treat my life as a transaction, my sorrow had to harden into stone. I looked down at my right hand. It was completely still. The tremor was a physical reality. Yes. But the weakness they saw was a theater I had built. I picked up my phone and dialed. Genevieve, it's done. They served the threat. We go to court Monday. Did they record you? Genevieve Abbott's voice was instantly sharp, the tone of a Boston trial lawyer who spent her life dissecting lies. Sibylla FaceTime called me earlier, recording my dementia symptoms on her phone, and Fitch tried to force me into a medical transport van parked outside. Perfect, Genevieve said. Because they chose to push the emergency order, they've officially initiated a fraudulent legal proceeding. Therefore, we are legally cleared to trigger the nuclear option. Get to my office in Boston. Cyrus is already here, and I've got the trust officer from New England Trust on the line. The drive down Route 2 was a blur of grey slush and cold rain. I parked near Post Office Square and took the elevator up to Genevieve's office. When I walked in, the room was warm, smelling of dark coffee and old paper. Genevieve was leaning over a mahogany desk, while Cyrus Montgomery, my trusted asset tracer, tapped away on a ruggedized ThinkPad. Across from them sat Thomas Vance, no relation to my late wife's family, the senior trust officer from the New England Trust Bank. "Cornelius," Thomas said, standing up to shake my hand. "I wish we were meeting under better circumstances. I read the Middlesex probate filing. It's ugly." "It's a hostile takeover, Thomas," I said, sitting down. "Except the asset they're trying to strip is my life. Well, they're about to find out your poison pill is already active," Genevieve said, sliding a thick, leather-bound binder toward me. It was the original charter of the Albright Spendthrift Trust, established 18 months ago. "Let's review the terms. Thomas, is the trust fully funded?" "Every cent," Thomas confirmed. The Concord property deed was transferred to New England Trust as trustee last year. The $8 million in diversified treasuries and blue-chip equities are held in our secure vault. Technically and legally, Cornelius owns 0 personal assets. He is merely a life tenant of the residence and an income beneficiary of the trust. Which means, Genevieve explained, that even if Fitch convinces a judge on Monday to grant Garrick emergency guardianship, there is absolutely no personal estate for him to manage. They can't sell the house because the house belongs to the bank. They can't touch the $8 million because the trustee is the sole custodian. "But they don't know that," I murmured, "because Garrick's keylogger only monitored my personal banking passwords. He saw the New England Trust statements, but he assumed they were standard individual retirement accounts." "Exactly," Cyrus chuckled, turning his screen toward me. "Because your son is an arrogant amateur. He didn't realize the account numbers were flagged under a fiduciary entity. He saw the numbers and got dollar signs in his eyes. He didn't read the fine print." "Now, let's talk about Section 47C, Genevieve said, flipping the thick pages of the trust binder until she stopped at a highlighted paragraph. "The moral and spendthrift forfeiture clause. Read it for us, Thomas. Let's make sure there are no loopholes." Thomas cleared his throat, adjusting his glasses. "Section 47C. In the event that any designated beneficiary of this trust, either individually or in collusion with others, engages in financial exploitation, elder abuse, or initiates any fraudulent legal proceeding, including but not limited to bad faith guardianship petitions or involuntary conservatorship filings against the grantor, Cornelius Albright." "Go on," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Then, such beneficiaries' interest in the trust estate, including all principal, accumulated income, and discretionary distributions, shall be forfeited immediately and irrevocably. For the purposes of this trust, the offending beneficiary shall be legally treated as having predeceased the grantor without issue, treating them as if they died before me," I said, a cold wave of finality washing over my chest. "No second chances, no appeal." "None," Genevieve said, "because the trust is irrevocable. The terms are set in stone. The moment we file our counter-petition on Monday, proving they initiated a fraudulent guardianship based on perjured medical testimony, Garrick, Sibylla, and Jessamy are legally dead to this estate." "And where does the $10 million go?" I asked, looking out the window at the Boston skyline. "To your designated successor beneficiary," Thomas said. "Under Section 47D, The entire estate is transferred permanently to the Massachusetts Veterans Support Fund. Your kids get absolutely nothing. Not a single dime. Good, I said, but my chest felt heavy. What about Dr. Finch? How do we prove the fraud? Cyrus tapped his keyboard, and a wire transfer receipt appeared on the screen. Because Garrick had to scramble to pay Finch before the Thanksgiving holiday, he used his primary holding company, Vance Capital. Look at the routing numbers. $50,000 left Chicago on Monday morning and landed in Alistair Finch's offshore account in Nassau by Tuesday afternoon. I've got the swift confirmation. And the medical evaluation? I asked. Finch never saw you, Genevieve said, holding up a certified log. I subpoenaed the visitor logs and billing records for Finch's Concord Clinic. There is no record of Cornelius Albright ever stepping foot in his office, nor is there any telehealth session registered under your Social Security number. Dr. Finch signed a psychiatric affidavit for a patient he has never spoken to. Because he was paid $50,000 to do it, I remarked. That's not just malpractice. That's a federal felony. It's conspiracy to commit mail and wire fraud, Genevieve agreed. And that brings us to Jessamy. Cyrus opened another folder. Jessamy was the one who filed the USPS mail forwarding request. She did it online using a prepaid debit card registered to her San Francisco address, because she used her personal IP to authorize the transaction on the USPS portal. We have her digital signature and geolocated coordinates. She literally signed your name to a federal document from 3,000 miles away. She was desperate, I muttered, rubbing my eyes. The bookies were squeezing her. She thought she had no choice. She had a choice. Cornelius, Genevieve said, her voice soft but unyielding. She chose to lock her father in a cage to pay off her debts. I know, I said, taking a deep breath. I know. So what is the sequence on Monday? I asked. We let Fitch present his case first, Genevieve said. Because he believes you are defenseless, he will walk into that courtroom oozing arrogance. He will present Finch's affidavit, and he will show the court the FaceTime videos Sibylla recorded. He will argue that your Parkinson's tremor is proof of late-stage dementia. And then I stand up. Genevieve smiled, a predator's glint in her eyes. I will present the MGH evaluation signed by 3 department heads. I will present Cyrus's forensic report on the $50,000 bribe. And finally, Thomas will present the trust agreement. The judge will not only throw out their petition, but she will also refer Barnaby Fitch and Dr. Finch to the district attorney for criminal prosecution. And my children. They will watch $10 million evaporate in front of their eyes, Genevieve said. Garrick's margin call will hit on Tuesday. Sibylla's creditors will foreclose on her showroom by Friday. And Jessamy, well, she will have to explain to her bookies why her inheritance is gone. I sat in silence, listening to the hum of the Boston traffic below. My hand started to shake, a slow, involuntary tremor of my right wrist. I didn't try to stop it this time. It was a part of me, a physical flaw, but it wasn't my mind. Let's do it, I said. Genevieve nodded, her fingers flying across her keyboard. I am uploading the counter-petition and the forensic evidence directly to the Middlesex Probate Judge's secure portal right now. Judge Judith Vance is presiding on Monday. She has a zero-tolerance policy for elder abuse. She pressed the enter key with a decisive click. The screen flickered, displaying the words, "Filing submitted successfully." Genevieve closed her laptop, leaning back in her chair. She looked at me, a calm, chilling smile on her face. "The trap is locked from the outside, Cornelius," she said. "Tomorrow, they walk into a legal slaughterhouse." The mahogany pews of courtroom 3B in the Middlesex Probate Court were cold, but the air inside was suffocatingly warm. The gallery was packed with reporters, drawn like flies to a family's public ruin. At the petitioner's table sat my children. Because they believed they had won, Garrick wore his 3-piece suit. Sibylla sat with her chin raised, and Jessamy stared at her trembling knees. Next to them stood Barnaby Fitch, adjusting his cuffs with the smug precision of a wolf. I sat with Genevieve Abbott, keeping my right hand resting on the table, letting the slow, rhythmic Parkinson's tremor play out in plain sight of the bench. "Middlesex Probate Court is now in session," the bailiff's voice echoed. Judge Judith Vance presiding. Judge Vance, a woman with iron-grey hair and eyes like polished slate, took her seat. She glanced down. "We are here on an emergency petition for temporary guardianship over Cornelius Albright, filed by Garrick, Sibylla, and Jessamy Albright. Mr. Fitch, you have the floor. I expect direct answers, not a theatrical performance." "Thank you, Your Honor," Fitch said, stepping forward. "We are here on an urgent matter. Cornelius Albright is a retired senior forensic auditor for the IRS. But because of advanced neurological decay, he is no longer competent to manage his affairs. His Parkinson's has progressed to severe senile dementia." "And your evidence, Mr. Fitch?" Judge Vance asked. "The court requires robust diagnostic documentation, not just speculation." "We have two compelling pieces of proof, Your Honor," Fitch smirked, sliding a document toward the clerk. "First, an affidavit from Dr. Alistair Finch, a highly respected psychiatrist, who certifies that Mr. Albright's cognitive faculties are irreversibly compromised. Second, video recordings captured by his own daughter, Sibylla, showing extreme confusion and physical instability in his Concord home. He is living in squalor, seeing ghosts, and shattering glassware. Therefore, to protect his safety, my clients request immediate guardianship." Garrick leaned back, crossing his legs, shooting a victorious look across the aisle. Because he was so certain of my defeat, he didn't even try to hide his disdain. "Is that all, Mr. Fitch?" Judge Vance asked. "Do you have any live testimony or further expert witness statements?" "Yes, Your Honor. The medical diagnosis is absolute. The safety risks are undeniable. There is no need to drag this out further." "Very well." Judge Vance turned her gaze to our table. "Mrs. Abbott, what is your response to these serious allegations?" Genevieve Abbott stood up. "Your Honor, because my client's children have painted a tragic picture, I believe it is only fair we introduce the light of actual science. I submit as Exhibit A a comprehensive, independent evaluation of Cornelius Albright, conducted this past Friday at Massachusetts General Hospital." Fitch chuckled softly. "Your Honor, any local clinic can be persuaded to write a favorable note for a wealthy client." "This was not a local clinic, Mr. Fitch," Genevieve interrupted, her voice cutting like a razor. "This evaluation was conducted and co-signed by 3 separate department heads, neurology, psychiatry, and geriatrics, at MGH. I've already uploaded the certified digital files. Mr. Albright scored a perfect 100% on every cognitive baseline test." Judge Vance's eyes flared. She tapped her screen, scanning the MGH report. The room fell into a dead silence. "But wait," Genevieve continued. "Since Mr. Fitch relies so heavily on Dr. Alistair Finch's affidavit, we must ask, how did Dr. Finch evaluate my client? Cyrus Montgomery, our forensic tech specialist, has subpoenaed Dr. Finch's Concord Clinic visitor logs. There is no record of Cornelius Albright ever setting foot in his clinic. There is no telehealth session registered. Dr. Finch signed an affidavit for a patient he has never spoken to." "That's preposterous," Fitch snarled. "Dr. Finch is a medical professional of high standing. He is a medical professional who was paid $50,000 on Tuesday afternoon," Genevieve said. She slid a document toward the clerk. "Exhibit B, the SwiftWire transfer routing numbers. $50,000, sent directly by Vance Capital Holdings, a shell LLC owned solely by Garrick Albright, to Dr. Alistair Finch's offshore account in Nassau, Bahamas." The gallery gasped. Garrick's victorious posture vanished. He bolted upright, his face draining of color. This is an outrage," Fitch stammered. "My clients have nothing to do with those offshore transactions." "Your clients committed perjury, Mr. Fitch," Genevieve said, "and because they wanted my client's house so badly, They also committed mail fraud. Jessamy Albright used a prepaid debit card to online route her father's mail to her apartment in San Francisco. We have the USPS geolocated IP address matching her apartment's router at the exact timestamp the request was authorized. She forged her father's signature. Jessamy buried her face in her hands, sobbing loudly. Quiet in the court. Judge Vance banged her gavel, her eyes burning as she stared down at the petitioners. Mr. Fitch, do you have an explanation for these financial transactions? Answer me directly. Fitch opened his mouth, but only a dry rasp came out. He looked at Garrick, then back at the judge. Your Honor, I was merely acting on the medical reports provided to me by my clients. Sit down, Mr. Fitch, Judge Vance growled. Because this court will not be used as a weapon for elder abuse, I am denying this petition with prejudice. Furthermore, I am referring Dr. Alistair Finch, Garrick Albright, and Jessamy Albright to the District Attorney's Office for immediate criminal prosecution. Wait, Garrick screamed, jumping to his feet. You can't do this. Dad, tell them. Tell them you're confused. I have $3 million in margin calls hitting Chicago at 4 o'clock today. If we don't liquidate the Concord House, I'm ruined. I stood up slowly, letting my right hand rest by my side, completely rock steady. Not a single tremor. You were always a terrible gambler, Garrick, I said, my voice echoing. Because you only looked at the numbers on my personal ledger, you assumed I was defenseless. But as a forensic auditor, I know that what is visible is never the whole truth. Thomas Vance stood up from the gallery and walked to the bar, handing a document to Genevieve. Your Honor, Genevieve said, we submit Exhibit C, the Charter for the Albright Spendthrift Trust, under Section 47C. The Moral and Forfeiture Clause, any beneficiary who engages in financial exploitation, elder abuse, or files a fraudulent guardianship petition against the grantor is immediately disqualified. They are legally treated as having predeceased the grantor. What? Sibylla shrieked, standing up so fast her chair scraped. No, Dad, you can't. That's $10 million. That's our inheritance. You wanted to bury me alive in Sunset Pines, Sibylla, I said, looking at her with cold eyes. Therefore, you have already received your inheritance. The entirety of the $10 million trust has been permanently transferred to the Massachusetts Veterans Support Fund. You get nothing. Not now. Not ever. Dad, please, Jessamy cried, throwing herself over the wooden barrier. They were going to hurt me. The bookies, they said they'd break my legs. Please, Dad, don't do this to us. I'm sorry. I looked at her, my heart breaking for the little girl she used to be. But the rules of gravity cannot be cheated. You chose to sign my name to a lie, Jessamy. Now you have to pay the audit. Garrick fell back into his chair, staring blankly, his hands trembling far worse than mine ever had. Sibylla screamed at Fitch, who was busy packing his briefcase, desperate to escape. I turned away. I adjusted my wool overcoat, fastened my silver cufflinks, and walked out of courtroom 3B. Genevieve and Cyrus walked beside me, our footsteps echoing down the marble hallway. As I pushed open the heavy brass doors, the bright December sun hit my face. It was freezing, but the air was clean. I survived their greed because I didn't let my love blind me to their rot. If you are facing a family betrayal, remember, do not fight anger with anger. Fight it with preparation, with the law, and with the quiet, devastating power of the truth. Thank you for standing by me through this dark chapter. If this story of justice has touched you, please hit that subscribe button, leave a comment below, and share this with someone who needs to know that the fortress of a father's love will never be breached by greedy vultures.